Hi guys, my presentation is going to be on Scottish identity and cultural transitions that it's faced. So one quote that I found said that national identity is more like Velcro. Not one big hook and eye, but a multitude of small ones. Tiny daily points of attachment in society that bind people very tightly together. So I think that's an awesome quote for starting and then beginning to analyze the different aspects of the two theories and how they apply to Scottish identity. So if you aren't familiar with the situation of Scottish identity, Scotland became a part of the United Kingdom in 1707 and was formally independent in their own country and had a very strong identity, as any country does. And since that time, there's been rises and falls in Scottish national identity, as well as in 2014, a Scottish referendum calling for independence. And so we're going to look first at some of the economic stability and welfare questions that have come up over the time with the rise and increase of Scottish national identity. One of those was in 1960s, and that was when Scotland found that they had oil. And so that really created a situation where they wanted to capitalize on the usage of that oil rather than sharing with all of the United Kingdom. Following that was a downturn in economics due to Thatcherism. And so these two interactions led to a call for a Scottish Parliament so that Scotland could have more of a voice and control of their own society within Scotland rather than being controlled purely by the United Kingdom and England. And so Thatcherism really hurt a lot of the companies and the miners and the work that was being done in Scotland, which created a sense of fear for the economic future, driving for an increase in support for the Scottish National Party. And the Scottish National Party is a party that was founded in 1934, and their purpose was for devolution from the United Kingdom's government. And now, as the time has changed, they have secured devolution, and now they push more for independence of Scotland. So then if we're looking at human interactions, there's this mixture in Scotland of a romanticism. So Sir Walter Scott creating the story of the tartan and creating an increased sense of nationalism. We have the Scottish flag, kilts, bagpipes, iron brew is the national drink of Scotland. So a lot of characteristics that apply only to Scotland and that only Scots can relate about, that British people or English people aren't necessarily able to relate on the day-to-day topics about. They also have a problem with legitimate representation within the democracy system that they're inside of within the United Kingdom. So devolution helped to kind of solve a little bit of that problem, giving them increased power of their laws as well as their educational system. And through this created another increase in nationalism to being able to control their society and what they were doing. But at the same time, there's been increased magnification of England's votes versus Scotland's votes in situations such as Brexit, where Scotland voted to remain a part of the EU and England didn't. And overall, obviously, we all know that they're leaving the EU, and so Scotland feels that their voice wasn't heard at all in that situation. It's led to an environment where, during the Scottish referendum, there was this kind of atmosphere that if you're truly Scottish, then you'll vote yes for Scottish independence. And so I think, as well as Brexit threatening economics and changing the human interactions, it threatens the spread of knowledge and science. So you have international Erasmus programs for student exchange, for professors, for intellectual trade going on. You have agreements and business contracts, and those are going to be drastically changed through Brexit and leaving the EU. And because of that, that increases Scotland's uncertainty of the future that they face. They don't have London, a big economic center, and they were heavily reliant on the EU. So when I was in Scotland, I actually met a person who worked with the mussel farm, and basically he told me that without the EU, that the whole island and all the mussel farming would be put to an end, and that for now they would have no idea what their future would hold. So that kind of uncertainty pushes for another rise of nationalism and to secure the Scottish independence as well as a voice for Scotland. Also, for the spread of knowledge and science through devolution, Scotland separated the different educational system, which allowed for an increase in education of the Gaelic language. They now have Gaelic road signs everywhere, and kind of a rise of that Gaelic identity from the past that had been pushed away and hidden more under the United Kingdom's educational system. So as for the software of the mind cultural dimensions, we've already touched on economic stability, welfare, human interaction, spread of knowledge for the first theory. For the second theory of software of mind cultural dimensions, there's a strong uncertainty avoidance. And you can see that this is continued through Scotland over the years, whether at the beginning with Jacobite uprisings, towards Thatcherism and a call for independence, and then during the independence referendum, and now most recently with Brexit. And so for them, this is an opportunity where they see uncertainty as a continuous threat that must be fought. And that uncertainty tends to come from being members of the United Kingdom. So it's a high stress, high anxiety atmosphere. But the Scots also view aggression and emotions to be a proper way to kind of voice their opinion about that atmosphere and the problems. Along with this, they have a short-term mindset, so they really value freedom, rights, achievements, thinking for oneself, and they have a dissatisfaction with contribution to daily human relations and to correcting injustice, because they see their situation of being under the UK's rule as an injustice, and the referendum and the devolution were solutions that they sought, and now through devolution they continue to seek further solutions. And so while they had the referendum vote in 2014, that was before Brexit, and when I was in Scotland, they were discussing a second referendum. I was there right after the Brexit vote, and so when they were discussing the second referendum, this kind of fear that if you do a second referendum and it fails, it's going to be dead for an entire generation. And so for them, they have this desire for uncertainty avoidance, but at the same time trying to correct the injustices of their society, but realizing how best to use their the tool of the Scottish referendum. And I believe the Scottish people see like a large power distance between themselves and between the government and the UK. They see inequalities that exist, and that they, as a less powerful country with less votes, are dependent on what the United Kingdom and England decide. So they're emotionally polarized between dependence and counter-dependence through the government situation, through their lack of numbers when it comes to voting. So overall, the cultural traits and cultural trends and shifts have moved strongly with economic changes, international relations changes, as well as how the Scots feel that they're being respected within the United Kingdom. And so I think they'll continue to face a lot of these challenges. Uncertainty avoidance will be massive during Brexit. And really, I think that they will try within Brexit to decrease the large power distance, and to kind of create a place for Scotland to have their own role within economics and politics. And so most recently, I found information from 2015 that said 62% of Scots said they would describe themselves as Scottish rather than British, 31% stating the opposite. And really that kind of just goes to show that here we are, it's 2018 now, so I don't have most recent statistics, but in 2015, 62% said they were purely Scots when they've been a part of the United Kingdom since 1707. So the cultural identity has shifted. There's been romanticisms through literature, such as Sir Walter Scott creating the Tartans. But overall, as they continue to face economic problems, their strive for national identity will continue.